Stand up, please. Mr. Daniel Graham, Mr. Adam Carruthers, I pass the same sentence in respect of you. The sentence is, on count 1, 4 years and 3 months imprisonment. On count 2, 6 months imprisonment, but to be served concurrently with the sentence on count 1. Daniel Graham, you've been in prison since the 2024. Adam Carruthers, you've been in prison since the 9th of May of 2025. The days that you've served will count towards your sentence. I've imposed a sentence of 4 years and 3 months imprisonment. You will be released no later than 40% of the way through the sentence, and the remainder of the sentence will be served on licence in the community. You must comply with all the conditions of your licence, failing which you will be at risk of recall to prison to serve the remainder of the term in custody. Thank you. I may go down.
There we go. That is the sentencing of those two men, Adam Carruthers and Daniel Graham, who drove through the night to that site in Northumberland where the Sycamore Gap tree stood and had stood for around 100 years. They felled that tree in less than 3 minutes, and they have now been sentenced to a custodial sentence on count 1 of 4 years and 3 months, on count 2 to 6 months. Well, let's bring in Shingi Mayuriki, who is outside Newcastle Crown Court for us this afternoon. And understandably, these two have faced a custodial sentence, given not just the seriousness of this offence, but as the judge also talked about, the fact that this was a national treasure, if you like.
Yeah, that's right. This tree was a national treasure, and just in the last few moments we have had the sentence passed. Daniel Graham and Adam Carruthers sentenced to 4 years and 3 months each for the felling of the Sycamore Gap tree that stood in Northumberland for more than 150 years. A tree described as totemic, as an emblem of the Northeast, which was pictured and photographed and known about all across the world. And we heard over the course of those sentencing remarks a outline of what had happened, and that outline started with them driving around 40 minutes from where they both lived in Cumbria, and then heading over from a car park to where the Sycamore Gap tree stood with a chainsaw. We now understand that Adam Carruthers is the one who cut down the tree, while Daniel Graham, who had driven that Range Rover car, was filming it and encouraging Adam Carruthers. And we also heard about their actions afterwards. We understand that the pair gloated. They were sending voice notes to one another, remarking on the media coverage around this case, and also mocking people who were posting on social media criticising their actions. We also know from the court case that there was a video of a stump and a chainsaw taken at Graham's address. The prosecution described that as trophies that the pair had taken after cutting down the tree. They gave us a sense of two people who had revelled in their actions that were viewed and remarked upon across the world, and actually caused quite a great degree of distress. And there were so many elements of intrigue to this case, like, for example, the sentencing guidelines. There was very little precedent for this, so there was lots of discussion between Miss Justice Lambert, the judge who was just speaking there, and the prosecution and the defence about how they could pass a fair and just sentence without much precedent, without many cases like this before. And then there was also the public outcry. We heard a victim impact statement from the National Trust, to own the land where the tree stood and to own the tree itself. And they spoke about the fact that thousands of people had written in. One person from Australia remarking on how upset they had been, and they had never seen the tree, they had just seen pictures. And then we also heard from people closer to home, and heard from people, for example, who had people propose there, for example. So that was the public element, and we heard about how that had impact on the National Trust too. Their staff working overtime, having to field calls and emails around this, and having to go to the site more often as well, whether that was for media interviews or just to accommodate for advanced footfall as people went there to pay their respects, if you like. And then we got closer to a big question around this, which was the motivation, just why they might have done this. We now understand that there were conversations once they had been charged and found guilty with probation officers in prison recently, in which the pair both accepted that they had done this, but we heard that Carruthers was saying it was a drunken act of stupidity. Graham didn't say that. Graham said that Carruthers had encouraged it, and that he had long coveted the idea of cutting down the tree, and that it was somewhat an obsession of his. But what we do know is that the pair revelled in their actions, and for that they have just been sentenced.